Hello, it's Mr. Eason again here with some homework help for section 9.6, and in this section we are comparing decimals. So we're going to be taking everything that we've learned about decimals so far and kind of applying it into comparing the different decimals. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Number 1 says compare 0.39 and 0.42. Write less than, greater than, or equal to. Shade the model to help. So it tells us we need to shade, so we are going to shade first. We know that to shade in 0.39, we need to shade in 3 full rows and then 9 squares after that, so we'll do that now. So there's 3 full. And 9. And so now we will shade in 0.42. Which means we're shading in 4 full rows this time. And 2 squares beside that. And so if we look, we can tell that 0.42 is slightly larger. The other way we can tell is that if you were to make those into fractions, you would have you would have 42 hundredths and you would have 39 hundredths, and since they have the same denominator, the 0.42 or the 42 hundredths would definitely be the larger decimal. Okay? Now on the next ones, they are asking us to use a place value chart in order to compare the two decimals, and that is pretty simple, and we're going to talk through how to use it even without the place value chart. So number 2, we have 0.26 and 0.23. So we'll fill in the place value chart. There are 0 ones in each number because there are no whole numbers in any of them. Okay, there are 2/10 in each, and then 0.26 has 6 hundredths, and 0.23 has 3 hundredths. So it is just like looking at a normal place value chart when you're comparing numbers. You start with the biggest place and compare those, and if they're the same, you move down a place. So we'll start in the ones place, and they're both zeros. So we'll move to the tenths. They're both twos, so we move to the hundredths, and 6 is larger than 3, so 0.26 is larger than 0.3. Okay. Number 3 says 0.7 and 0.54. This one can be tricky if you're not careful about using the rules for comparing decimals. So first we will go ahead and we'll fill them in the place value chart. 0.7, there are 0 ones. There are 7/10, and there are no hundredths, so we can either leave it blank or we can put a 0 in there. I'm going to put a 0 in there. And so now we'll look at 0.54. There are 0 ones. There are 5/10, and there are 4 hundredths. So if we look at the place value chart, starting in the ones place, there are 0 ones, so you move to the tenths place. There are 7/10, and there are 5/10. According to our rules, all we have to do is look at the tenths place because they're different now. So we know that 7/10 is larger than 5/10, so 0.7 is larger than 0.54. And it's tricky because if you just look at the numbers, 54 looks bigger than 7. But really, that 0.7 is a 0.70, and 70 is larger than 54. So what I've told the students they could do is to see it easier when they have 0.7 or 0 point any number just with one digit behind the decimal place, they can put a 0 in there. And it's kind of hard to see there. Let me try that again. But if you put a 0 in there, then you can, I think, easily see that 0.70 is larger than 0.54. So let's go ahead and let's look at the last two really quickly. We have 1.15 and 1.3. So now we are actually getting into whole numbers. So we have a 1.15 and we have a 1.3. And if we put the 0 on there, well, there's a 0 there as well. So we look in the ones place first. It's a 1 and a 1. Now we go to the tenths place, and 3 is larger than 1, so 1.3 is larger than 1.15. And the last one we will do is 4.5 and 2.89. So again, we'll fill in the place value chart. We've got 4.50. We've got 2.89. We want to know which one is larger. So we'll start in the ones place, and already we have a difference. 4 is greater than 2. So 4.5 is greater than 2.89. Even though there is an 8 and that's bigger than a 5, and there's a 9 and that's bigger than a 0, just like regular numbers, we look in the biggest place value first, and we know that 4 is larger than 2. So 4.5 is larger than 2.89. So if you can use this place value chart, if you can put a 0 onto the end of numbers to make sure that the decimal places are even numbers, or an even, the same number of decimal places for each thing you're looking at, then this should not be too difficult. This is Homework Help. Thanks.